This is how to use KDE Kate, the KDE Advanced Text Editor, for programming in the Java programming language. So this is the text editor from the KDE community, Kate. This is the homepage, apps.kde.org/Kate. Kate supports tabs, has syntax highlighting, has a minimap, support for the Java programming language, both for the syntax highlighting, but also for LSP language server protocol. Let's create a sample Hello World Java project and open it in Kate. So this is what we have. We have an Apache Maven Hello World application with a Hello World Java file, which looks like this. Let's open KDE Kate text editor and tell it to load the entire directory inside. So the directory of the project is this one, ~work/a. There's no Git repositories yet. We should have one. So this is the syntax Kate and then the name of the directory. In this case, the current directory, so dot. So we have a readme.md. We have a pom.xml, so an Apache Maven top-level configuration file that has two parts, one for compiling, so from .java file to .class file, and then one for creating a hello world jar that we can run using java --jar command line parameter. Let's see that everything works correctly. We have built-in terminal for the text editor Kate, so we can compile. We can run the generated .class file, which is not visible in here. So it's in the subdirectory target, and then classes and hello world.class. Or we can create a jar package. Which is in the target subdirectory, and then in here there's hello -world minus and then the version 1.0 minus snapshot.jar, which is the default name for the jar file created by Apache Maven. So let's also run the jar with its entry point. And it's working correctly. The source code is as you would expect, system.out.println and then hello world string literal. You can already see some of the features which are useful for programming in the Java programming language. So there's the built-in tool window for the terminal. There's a text editor that supports syntax highlighting for the Java programming language. There's this useful minimap in the scroll bar. Next up, we're going to try to add support for the language server protocol. The KDE Kate text editor is configured with one LSP, language server protocol, for a programming language. So there's a default LSP that is configured out of the box inside KDE Kate. But when you install the KDE Kate application, for instance, on my operating system, which is Ubuntu 26.04, that will not automatically install all of the possible LSPs for all of the possible programming languages that are supported by default by KDE Kate. So a manual step would be to actually find the LSP executable that Kate prefers for the Java programming language, which we do by clicking on the output tool window. And in here it says that it wants to find multiple LSP servers. So it wants JDTLS, wants lemminx, and wants marksman. Let's find all of these executables and make sure they're installed. There's GitHub repositories for each of these. So I have opened a terminal and I want to see if any of these are packaged by default for my Linux operating system, which again is Ubuntu 26.04. I'm going to become the super user. I'm going to install the tool for searching inside the deb packages inside the remote repositories, which is named apt file. So apt-file. Seems to be related to the Perl programming language. After install apt file, the next step is to install the metadata. apt-file space update. This downloads metadata about the repositories that are currently enabled on the operating system, about the deb packages that exist in these repositories, and about the contents of these deb files. So the list of files existing in all of the deb files that can be installed on my system right now. And then we can use the executable apt file search. You can search case insensitively. And we want to see if one of the deb packages that can be installed on my system contains an executable named marksman. So I'm going to search for /bin/marksman. Okay, so /bin/marksman is a part of the path that I would expect the executable to have. I would expect the executable to be /usr/bin/marksman if this Git repository is packaged for the Debian family of Linux operating systems, which probably it's not the case. Let's go to the GitHub repository and see what information we can get in here, how we can install this executable. How do we do copy paste? Okay, so it's written in F#, which is an interesting choice. Let's see how we can install it. Install instructions. It says that it's available using the Snap Package Manager in Ubuntu 26.04. Yeah, maybe we want the stable version, or maybe the Edge version. Snap install marksman. So this depends on Ubuntu 22.04 and seems to be a fresh version from this year, from February. Okay, next up we want lemminx. I'm not sure what for, so I'm curious. Let's see what this thing is. Is it for Maven? Is it for Java? What is it for? XML language server, because Maven is using the XML extension for the pom.xml file. Okay, so we're in the GitHub repository for VS Code extension for XML support, which uses the XML language server eclipse -lemminx. And this has as a demo actually editing an Apache Maven pom.xml file. And there's instructions for building a native binary with Graal VM. Quite the instructions in here. Let's see if the promise of a already existing executable works. So it says that there's snapshots, which there aren't, or stable release versions, which let's see if that's the case. So the newest release is from 6 years ago, 2020. So I'm not sure how up to date the instructions are in here. These are the release versions. Maybe we need this zip file. Let me download and see where I need to install it. Hopefully I have tilde/.local/bin in my path environment variable. So I have installed the text user interface file manager minec commander apt install mc. I have downloaded this zip file lemminx-linux.zip, which is 13 megabytes in size and actually contains just one file inside, which is this 44 megabyte executable. ELF 64-bit LSB executable, so a real Linux executable. Let's see what's the status with tilde/.local/bin. Does not exist yet. Let's create it. I'm going to move the file. The executable, it's already executable, so it already has the chmod bit plus x. And at this point, I'll need to log out of the KDE Plasma session and log in again because I want tilde/.local/bin to be in the path environment variable. That's how this environment variable works. After you create the tilde/.local/bin directory, you need to re-log into the KDE Plasma graphical user interface session. I have logged out of KDE Plasma graphical user interface session, relogged in, and now if I run echo space $path and I see the content of the environment variable path, it actually starts with tilde/.local/bin, which means that the needed executable can be found by Kate. And we'll need to add this executable JDTLS. I have searched the package manager if it knows about JDTLS, either JDT.ls or JDTLS, or any of the packages that have JDT in name. These are all of them, and there's no language server protocol server in here. And this is the GitHub project. Says that some Linux operating systems might have this packaged. Again, I cannot find it. Let's see the milestone builds. The things are getting a bit complicated, so I'm going to reach for my graphical user interface file manager of choice, which is KDE Crusader. Let's do that. I'm going to configure it real quick. One, two, three, four, 5 and the editor. And that should be it. Not really. Ignore what I'm doing right now. Embedded terminal. Okay, so I have downloaded the JDT language server as a tar gzip, which is, I know, looks like a Eclipse project P2 repository. And here is JDTLS. So I have no clue how to install this thing. I don't know. So it's a tar gzip. I know how to extract it. It probably should live under ~.opt. Yeah, let's try to do that. So first extracted, tar extract vf, and I didn't specify the algorithm for compression, and tar knows how to compute that it's z, so tar gzip. So I didn't say tar minus xzvf. I said tar minus xvf, and it's the same thing. It's equivalent. Okay. Not sure even if the bin is, what is it? So it's a bash script, Python script. Yeah, we can try. So in the home directory, create a directory named .opt. So a similar directory structure as /opt, which means inside there's directories with maybe longer names like the name of a project, or vendor minus name of project, or name of project minus and then the version, and then inside whatever the project's binaries look like. And then somehow we're going to expose the executable files from ~/.local/bin, usually using symlinks. Okay, so we want everything in here except the two archives. Okay, let's see how this thing works. /JDTLS. So it doesn't complain that it didn't find the Java executable. So I'm going to guess it just works. Control C to close it. And let's see how we create symbolic links. I don't really know. So there is ln minus s. To create symbolic links, and then I need to specify the files. Let's see if there's any examples. Nope. So I have asked Google Search AI mode, and the answer is what I would expect, but then it's good as a confirmation. So we want full path to the actual executable and as the first parameter, which is the hard part, and then the soft part, which is the destination, the target, should be just the name of a directory. Let's see if the symlink was created. .local bin and jdtls. Let's switch to another directory. And which works. But then does it start? I'm not even sure if it's executable or not. How can we find out? This thing. ls-l and full path to jdtls. And it's executable for everybody. Okay, so jdtls, and it seems to work correctly. Back to where we were. Inside the home directory, there's a work directory and then a subdirectory. In here, we open Kate. And it still complains. It complains that we didn't create a Git repository. So we didn't put under Git version control this Java project, which we totally should do. So let's do that. Git init dot, and it worked. Let's do the first git commit. So that's git GUI. The deb package was not installed yet. Apt install git GUI. Also installs git K. So git K is for the history of a file or of a directory or of a repository. Git repository, and then git GUI is for committing, fetching, pulling, pushing operations on the files which are staged, etc. Continue. Amend. So this is the default graphical user interface app from the Git project themselves, Git GUI. The GUI application, so let's put an ampersand at the end. So immediately I can see that there are build artifacts which are offered to be added to the project, which I probably don't want, such as the jar file. So I'm going to search on the internet for the git ignore file for Java and Apache Maven. So I searched on Google .git ignore Java Apache Maven, and I guessed that there would exist such a thing. So the github.com repository named gitignore has a version for Maven. Maven.gitignore file. Let's download the file locally. How do we do that? Copy raw file, we can do that. And we don't need Dolphin any longer. I'm going to actually unpin it from the taskbar, from the task manager, and create the file. So we can create it with, I know, Shift F4. What did I do? .git ignore. And Control V. Really new line, save. Okay. So we'll need to add to the first initial commit on the Git repository the .gitignore file, readme.md file, pom.xml, and hello-world.java file. Initial commit is going to be the git commit message and title. I don't have these things configured yet. Let's actually configure them. How do we do that? Git config global user.email, and let's go with that. And then the name. As far as I know, you can not copy this text inside the message box. Yeah, which is a missing feature in TCL/TK. And now we can commit. Let's look at the history, which actually starts the executable git k. Just one git commit, just one git branch, the local master one. And it looks as we would expect. Back to where we were. Where were we? So in the correct directory, we run Kate with a dot. The executable Kate does the correct thing, which is, although we did not specify the ampersand, it actually backgrounds itself, whatever. It frees the REPL, in our case, the bash shell, such that we can run other commands in the shell. Nice feature to have. Okay, let's see if the LSP for MD Markdown files work. Okay, I don't see any complaints in here. I'm not sure what the LSP actually does. Probably this thing, which is showing chapters in the file. Let's see how the LSP either for XML or for Apache Maven works. So it complains that lemmin X is not on the path, which is strange. So the path does contain tilde/.local/bin. And the name of the executable is lemmin X minus Linux, not lemmin X, so without Linux. So let's rename it. How do we do that? Move. Alt backspace. Okay, and back to the pom.xml file. Asks if I want to start lemmin X. Yes, do that. Okay, let's see what we have here. We have a structure for the XML with all of the tags possible. Navigate to tag, closing tag. Okay, and the context menu that we're looking for LSP action is right click and then LSP client. There's formatting for XML. Let's see what that does. I'm not sure what it did. Let's look at the Git history. So it put on a single line the name spaces, so XML namespaces, the first XML tag, which might be a good idea. And finally, let's go to the Java file and see we're asked if Kate can start the executable JDTLS from the path environment variable. Yes. Terminally deprecated. It's not a deprecated method, but a terminally deprecated method. Sun misc unsafe. Okay, so not all of the three LSP language server provider servers are that new. Not all of them, not all of these three executables are from this year. So there will be deprecated features and dependent packages involved. Okay, so I can see breadcrumb, I can see classes and methods. Let's see how we get help docstrings. So I hover on the main method and there's a docstring. Something happened there. Java exception has been thrown. Request timeout. Something about networking. I'm not sure what that is, but seems that the build path specifies execution environment Java SE17. There are no JREs installed in the workspace. Not sure what these errors are. Maven compiler source. Hopefully these are warnings, not errors. So let's look at the features. Again, we had syntax highlighting, text editor that actually works correctly, and then minimap. We also have on hover docstrings. I'm not sure how actually to interact with the docstring pop-up menu. So I would expect this to be resizable and to leave as far as I hover on top of this tooltip-like window. And why not? Maybe even navigation to the see also elements. And then we have the breadcrumb with the structure of the file. We have the tool window named projects, where you can select the project that's loaded inside Kate. There's just one, the A. I'm not sure if the projects view actually understands Apache Maven. And there's Git support. I don't know how to use the Git support in Kate. I always use Git GUI and Git K. There's a symbol outline for the current file. So something similar to what you see in the breadcrumb. And then there's additional actions in the main menu LSP client in KDE Kate. Let's see, go to definition. No results. Yeah, I'm not sure how telling the LSP where the source code of the current JDK is, or where the documentation of the current JDK is. But maybe there's ways of doing it. Maybe both the source code of the current JDK and or just the source code of the Java standard library, and then the documentation of the Java standard library maybe are already provided as the packages by Ubuntu. Okay, let's see more features. So once we'll have more of our own source code, so not the source code from the standard Java library, we'll be able to go to definition, go to declaration, find references, find implementations, format, rename, and there's expanding and shrinking the selection. Let's see if that works correctly. Control 2. Control 2. Yeah, so that actually requires understanding the language. So I select a character in the string literal, Control 2 selects the entire string, Control 2 selects the entire statement without the semicolon, then also the semicolon, then the body of the main, then the main, and then the class. Useful feature to have. You can restart the LSP server. Generate toString for the current object. Code actions. Wow. Very cool. And then there's also the context menu where you have LSP client. Let's see how that works. So parts of the main menu in here are available in the context menu. I'm not exactly sure how the selection was made, why expand selection and shrink selection are not exposed by default in the context menu. But then restarting the LSP server is exposed, so I wouldn't do that. Restarting the LSP server and restarting all LSP servers, I would only keep it in the Kate main menu LSP client, not in the context menu for every identifier or every text selection possible. And then also more options. I would not have it in the context menu. I don't see how these more options works per selected text. Doesn't seem to care about what the text selection is right now. It's settings. Yeah, so I would move this, and this to be just in the main menu, not in the context menu. And then, as we saw previously, inside the readme.md file. In Kate, if you don't want to exit the text editor, you have a terminal tool window where you can run all of the commands that you want. Copy paste works even if you just select and then middle click paste. Copy paste with copy and paste, or with a clipboard also works. It's a full-blown KDE default terminal emulator in here. So what you see in the left-hand side, which is console, all of the features you will also have in the tool window terminal inside KDE Kate. And even tabs, Ctrl-Shift-T. And maybe you can even enable middle click on the tab to close the tab. Let's see how we do that. Close tab on middle click. Let's see if KDE Kate has support for the AP debug adapter protocol for the Java programming language. We'll need a plugin for that. So from the Kate main menu settings, configure Kate, then plugins tab, and in here select Kate debugger. And then we're going to probably need the help. So this is the Kate handbook, which is the product manual. In here, we're going to scroll towards the plugin documentation. It was previously called GDB plugin, so probably this one. Debug, start debugging. So there's a new top level menu item named debug. There's targets, starting, toggling breakpoints, step into, over, out, continue, as you would expect. And then there's a list of main toolbar buttons for debug actions. We need a DAP server or GDB. Show debug view, probably this one. Let's see. View, tool view, show debug view, this thing. There's locals and stack, but first of all, let's put a breakpoint in the Java source code and see if the debugger actually starts and pauses on that line. Start debugging. I'm toggling a breakpoint. That seems to work. And then how do we start debugging? There's no button to start. There's debug output and settings. Path to the target executable for debugging. And first we need to specify that we want to use a DAP server for Java. So probably in here in the settings tab in the tool window debug, we need to select the correct DAP server. So probably most often you would use GDB, but in this case we would want something that actually knows about the Java programming language. I don't see anything related to Java, so Dart is probably for the Google Dart programming language. Debug PI probably is for Python. Delve is probably for the Golang. Flutter for Flutter, which is Dart. GDB for, I don't know, C++, but also for other programming languages if you lack any form of debugger. It's going to be a primitive experience, but it's the native debugger in Linux. LLDB DAP, I'm not sure what is, probably for C and C++. Netcore DBG, I don't know. Perl LS sounds like the Perl programming language. So I don't see anything in this list that seems to be a DAP server for the Java programming language. So we leave it at that. Maybe you can, I don't know. Let's see if we can use GDB. How far do we get? readme.md. So we want Java, maybe we want the full executable, the full path to the executable. Working directory, the current directory. How do we do that? Yes. And arguments, this thing. How do we copy? And what do we do next? How do we save? How do we start? We can add a new target, copy, delete. Not sure if we built this thing, so let's do it. Yeah, we did compile. How do we start the debugger? This button. Start debugging, Control Shift F7, and from the main menu, debug, start debugging. What was there? No source file named home administrator. So it sees it, GDB starts, and then the integration inside Kate talks to the GDB executable. Hey, please put a breakpoint on file hello-world.java line 3. And then GDB says that there's no such thing as the line 3 from this source file. Which is saying that it doesn't, I know, in all of the process that's started by GDB and monitored by GDB and managed by GDB, there's no source code equivalent to this file, probably. So the debugger starts the Java process with the correct parameters, but then it cannot place a breakpoint, it cannot pause the debugger. I'm not sure where the output is shown from the standard output. Yeah, probably at this point it would be a good idea for somebody to come along and study the list of LDAP servers that are available and can be installed on Linux for the Java programming language. Maybe some custom development is going to be needed. there totally is a Visual Studio Code extension for Java that has a DAP implementation, so maybe extract that, make it a standalone executable, provide it pre-built for Linux GNU 64-bit AMD 64, and then add inside KDE Kate support in the debugger plugin, add it in here in this combo box. Let's close this plugin. Let's remove it altogether from Kate, the Kate debugger. Let's look at the Kate plugin build and run. So I have enabled it and then installed it. And we have this build tool window. We're going to add items either under session or under projects. Let's look at the product manual, Kate handbook for this. Build plugin. So says that projects and sessions are similar, but they're stored in different places. Projects get stored into a .kate project.build file, which in my case does not work because a bug that was fixed last year. But meanwhile, while the project's bug gets fixed and available in your Linux operating system, we'll use session. So let's go session and then click on the add new target button. Select the strange directory, not the directory that's opened inside Kate, which I think is a bug. And we'll put the build command, which is mvn compile. And that should be it. Now we have a session, a target that we can actually start. Let's see how we do that. The Kate main menu, build, and then select target. There's nothing to filter in there. Build selected target. Inside the tool window build, in the tab output, you can see the output from the command line, mvn space compile. Maybe you want to run mvn without colors, which probably will require setting an environment variable, which I don't know how to do. I have asked Google Search AI mode and says that either -b or -d style.color equals never. Probably the first thing, because we probably don't want the user to be asked questions in the output of the compile command. Okay, there's no button to save, so probably it's instant apply. Once you exit this single line text editor, your changes get saved automatically. So for session, it's stored in the current Kate session configuration, which is from the Kate main menu session, this thing. Okay, let's run it again. And this time the output doesn't contain text user interface colors. And it's cleaner and easier to read. Okay. Should we have a button to run in here? Working, build, run command. There's such a thing as a run command. How do we do that? There's a second column here, which is called run command. So run command would be this. Control V. Okay, exit to save. And then the run button appears. So from the main menu of Kate, build, and then build and run selected target. Oh, cool. So we have on-screen display build finished successfully. Action in the build tool window output tab for the build, and then the tab build command, which actually runs the run part. So Java -cp target classes and hello world. And we can see the standard output from running the executable, running the compiled Java source code. Build, build and run, other targets, output tab, errors and warnings to diagnostics. How do we do that? Plugins settings page in Kate settings. Where is that? Build and run. So the tab added at the end of the general Kate settings. This checkbox is enabled by default. Add errors and warnings to diagnostics. Yeah, so a ton of things can be made to work in the KDE Kate advanced text editor for the Java programming language. The thing that I didn't yet see how to make work is debugging. So using a DAP, probably DAP server for the Java programming language. But other than that, we have the possibility of compiling, of running. We can see the output from the run, output from building. We have the LSP for various languages, including for Java. The LSP starts when you open the first Java file. So you need to wait, I know, for 2 seconds until you can do LSP actions until the LSP server, language server protocol server is running. So it's being started as a sub-process of the Kate process on an as-needed basis. Output about the lifetime of the language server protocol is available in the Kate tool window output. There's a diagnostics tab if you have compiler errors. For example, from the Maven output. So this is it. This is how to configure the KDE Kate advanced text editor for as many features as possible when using Kate for programming in the Java programming language. Thank you.